The hotel keycard fell out of Clara's coat pocket like a confession written in plastic. Room 814, CK. I stared at it for a moment, turning it over in my fingers while my wife hummed in the shower upstairs. The irony wasn't lost on me. Her initials were still CK, but the K wasn't me anymore. I automate code for a living, but apparently I can't debug my wife's poker face. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. Dad, can you help with my math homework? Sam called from the kitchen table, his 10-year-old voice cutting through my mental fog. Sure, buddy. I slipped the keycard into my wallet, forcing a smile as I joined my son. At least one relationship in this house still made sense. Clara emerged 20 minutes later, hair perfect, makeup flawless, wearing that black dress she claimed was for client meetings. She kissed my cheek with lips that felt like they'd been practicing on someone else. Working late again tonight, she said, grabbing her purse. The Henderson property needs staging. On a Thursday? I asked, watching her freeze for just a microsecond. Big clients don't follow normal schedules, Rowan. You know that. She was gone before I could respond, leaving behind the scent of expensive perfume and cheaper lies. Sam looked up from his fractions worksheet. Mom's been working a lot lately. Yeah, she has. I ruffled his dark hair, so much like mine. But that's okay. More time for us to figure out why 3/4 plus 1/2 equals disaster. He giggled, and for a moment, I forgot about hotel keycards and the way my wife's eyes had started looking through me instead of at me. The next morning, I called Brett from my office at TechFlow Solutions. Brett Martinez had been my closest friend since college, the kind of guy who'd help you move a body without asking questions, though hopefully it wouldn't come to that. You sound like hell, he said, settling into the chair across from my desk with his usual morning coffee. Clara's having an affair. Brett nearly choked on his drink. Jesus, Rowan, are you sure? I pulled out the keycard. Pretty sure. Plus there's the mysterious business trips, the phone calls she takes in the garage, and the way she suddenly became interested in fitness right around the time she started working with Oliver Kane. The contractor? That meathead who looks like he bench presses pickup trucks? That's the one? Brett leaned back, processing. What are you going to do? I don't know yet, but I'm done being the oblivious husband. That evening, I decided to do some detective work. Clara's home office was usually off limits, but desperate times called for desperate measures. Her laptop was password protected, but she'd never been particularly creative. Sam's birthday worked on the third try. Her email revealed a digital trail of deceit that would make a forensic accountant weep. Fake expense reports, personal trips billed as business, and a series of increasingly intimate messages with Oliver Kane that made my stomach turn. Can't wait to see you again. Room 814 is waiting. Oh, Rowan's working late. Perfect timing. See? When are you going to tell him? Oh, soon. I need to secure my position first. See? I screenshotted everything, my hands shaking with a mixture of rage and cold calculation. Clara thought she was playing chess, but she'd been leaving her pieces exposed for months. The final message was from yesterday. Give me 70% in the divorce or you'll never see Sam again. I have leverage you don't know about. C. Attached was a selfie of Clara and Oliver at some upscale rooftop restaurant, both grinning like they'd just won the lottery. In a way, they thought they had. I sat back in her chair, staring at the screen. 15 years of marriage, reduced to blackmail and threats. My inner voice, usually reserved for debugging stubborn code, kicked into overdrive. Well, at least she's efficient. Most people take years to completely destroy a relationship. Clara managed it in 6 months. I didn't sleep that night. Instead, I sat in my home office planning. By morning, I had a strategy that would make Sun Tzu proud and a lawyer's phone number programmed into my speed dial. David Chen at Morrison & Associates was the kind of attorney who smiled like a shark and billed like one too. But he was also the best divorce lawyer in the city. Extortion is a serious accusation, Mr. Pierce, he said, reviewing the evidence I'd compiled. These messages, the falsified expense reports, the threats regarding your son, this paints a very clear picture. What are my options? Well, traditionally, people in your situation try to work things out. Maybe go to counseling? There's a third option, I interrupted. David raised an eyebrow. Which is? I file first. I file hard. And I make sure Clara learns that threatening to take my son was the biggest mistake of her life. That afternoon, I sent Clara a simple text. There's a third option. Her response came within minutes. What's that supposed to mean? I didn't reply. Instead, I drove to Oliver's construction site on the east side of town. His oversized pickup truck sat in the parking lot like a monument to overcompensation. I'd brought supplies. 20 minutes later, I was parked across the street watching Oliver discover his truck. All 4 tires were flat, and Home Wrecker was spray-painted across the windshield in bright red letters. He stood there for a full minute, phone pressed to his ear, probably calling Clara. My phone buzzed. Clara. Did you do something to Oliver's truck? Me? I don't know what you're talking about, but karma has excellent timing. I drove home smirking. Love is a flat tire on the road to hell. The next morning, I arrived at Clara's real estate agency during their weekly team meeting. The receptionist tried to stop me, but I walked past her with the confidence of a man who had nothing left to lose. Sorry to interrupt, I announced to the conference room full of agents and their boss, Patricia Hendricks. I just wanted to drop off some documents Clara might have forgotten. I placed a thick manila envelope on the table in front of Patricia. These are copies of expense reports Clara filed with your agency. I think you'll find the dates and locations interesting. Clara's face went white. Rowan, what are you doing? Just helping everyone stay organized, I said cheerfully. You know how important accurate record-keeping is in real estate. Patricia opened the envelope, her expression darkening as she scanned the contents. The room fell silent, except for the sound of papers rustling and Clara's increasingly panicked breathing. Clara, we need to talk, Patricia said, her voice ice-cold. Everyone else, meeting adjourned. I left them to sort out the mess, but not before catching Clara's eye. Oh, and Clara, you might want to check your phone. I sent you something. In the parking lot, I opened my phone and sent her a screenshot of her own message. Give me 70% in the divorce or you'll never see Sam again. My accompanying text read, Threatening parental alienation is a felony in this state. My lawyer found that fascinating. Her response was immediate. You bastard. You're ruining everything. Me. No, Clara. I'm just refusing to let you ruin me. That evening, Oliver showed up at my house. I watched him through the window, pacing on my front porch like a caged animal. When I finally opened the door, he was red-faced and sweating. You need to back off, he said, trying to sound threatening but mostly sounding desperate. I need to do a lot of things, Oliver. Back off isn't one of them. Clara told me what you did at her office. You can't just... I can't just what? Tell the truth, share accurate information. I'm sorry, I didn't realize honesty was off limits. He stepped closer, and for a moment I thought he might actually try to intimidate me physically. Instead, he deflated like a punctured tire. Look, this whole thing got out of hand. Maybe we can work something out. We? I laughed. There is no we, Oliver. There's you, there's my wife, and there's the mess you both made. I'm just here to document the cleanup. He left without another word, but I could see him making a phone call as he walked to his rental car, probably updating Clara on how badly their intimidation strategy had failed. The neighborhood barbecue at the Johnsons' house was an annual tradition, the kind of suburban gathering where gossip flowed as freely as the beer. I arrived fashionably late, just as the crowd was reaching that perfect level of social lubrication. Rowan, Nancy Johnson waved me over to where she was holding court by the grill. Where's Clara? Don't tell me she's working again. Actually, she is working, I said, accepting a beer from Tom Johnson. She's been putting in a lot of overtime lately, really going above and beyond for her clients. That's dedication, said Mike Stevens from next door. Oh, it's something all right. I took a sip of beer, timing my next words perfectly. Did you know she's been taking personal trips and billing them as business expenses? I found the most interesting paper trail. The conversation around us gradually quieted as my words sank in. What do you mean? Nancy asked, her voice dropping to that conspiratorial whisper that signals the beginning of premium gossip. Well, apparently those weekend client meetings in the mountains were actually romantic getaways with Oliver Kane. You know, the contractor? Big guy, drives the truck with the custom paint job? The one that was vandalized yesterday, Tom asked. Was it? How terrible. I managed to look appropriately concerned. Anyway, I'm sure it's all just a misunderstanding. I mean, what are the odds that my wife would falsify business records to cover up an affair while simultaneously threatening to take my son away from me unless I give her 70% of our assets in a divorce? The silence that followed was deafening. Jesus, Rowan, Mike said finally. Are you serious? Before I could answer, I heard a familiar voice behind me. There you are. I turned to see Clara pushing through the crowd, her face flushed with anger and embarrassment. She'd clearly been looking for me, and from her expression, she'd heard enough of the conversation to understand what was happening. Clara, Nancy said, her voice bright with false cheer. We were just talking about you. I'm sure you were. Clara's eyes locked on mine, blazing with fury. "Rowan, we need to talk. Now." "Actually, I think we've talked enough," I said, pulling out my phone. "But since everyone's here, maybe they'd like to hear some of our recent conversations." I opened my voice message app and hit play. Clara's voice filled the air, crystal clear. "Oliver, I need you to back up my story about the Henderson property. If Rowan finds out about the fake receipts, everything falls apart. Just stick to the script, and I'll make it worth your while." The crowd was silent now, every eye fixed on Clara as her recorded voice continued. "Once the divorce goes through, we'll have enough money to start over somewhere new. Rowan will never see it coming." Clara lunged for my phone, but I stepped back, holding it out of reach. "Give me that," she screamed, losing all pretense of composure. "Why? It's your voice, Clara. These are your words." She came at me again, and this time I wasn't quite fast enough. Her fingernails raked across my wrist as she grabbed for the phone, leaving a sharp sting. "Hey!" Tom Johnson stepped between us. That's enough." Clara stood there, breathing hard, her perfect facade completely shattered. Around us, the party had come to a complete stop. 30 of our neighbors and friends stood in shocked silence, watching the collapse of what they'd thought was a solid marriage. "You bastard," Clara whispered. "You're destroying everything." "No," I said quietly, looking around at the faces of people who'd known us for years. "I'm just refusing to let you destroy me in private." Clara looked around the circle of staring faces, finally understanding that her reputation in this community was over. Without another word, she turned and pushed her way back through the crowd, leaving me standing there with a bleeding wrist and a phone full of evidence. Nancy Johnson was the first to break the silence. "Rowan, honey, are you okay?" "I'm fine," I said, wrapping a napkin around the scratches. "Actually, I'm better than I've been in months." The party resumed eventually, but the conversations were different now, quieter, more intense. I could see the story spreading through the crowd like ripples in a pond, each retelling adding new details and speculation. By the time I left, I knew that Clara's version of events would never gain traction in our social circle. The truth had been released into the wild, and it was hungry. Monday morning brought a phone call that made me freeze. "Mr. Pierce, this is Janet Williams at Riverside Elementary. I'm calling because your wife just tried to pick up Sam, but she's not on today's approved pickup list." I was already grabbing my keys. "Where is she now?" "She's in the parking lot, arguing with our security guard. Sam is safe in the office with me, but she's demanding we release him to her custody." "I'll be there in 10 minutes. Do not let her take my son." I broke several speed limits getting to Sam's school, my mind racing through worst-case scenarios. Clara was desperate now, her reputation in shambles, her job hanging by a thread. Desperate people made dangerous decisions. I arrived to find Clara's car parked sideways across 3 spaces, driver's door open like she'd abandoned it mid-escape. She was standing near the school entrance, gesticulating wildly at a patient-looking security guard. "Clara!" I called out as I approached. She spun around, her face a mask of fury and desperation. "You can't keep him from me, Rowan. He's my son, too." "You're right, he is. But threatening to take him away from me unless I pay you off? That's not motherhood, Clara. That's extortion." A small crowd was gathering, other parents dropping off forgotten lunches or picking up sick kids. I could see phones coming out, recording the scene. "I never threatened anything," Clara said, but her voice lacked conviction. I pulled out my phone and opened the message thread. "Should I read your exact words, out loud, in front of all these people?" Clara's composure cracked completely. "You're destroying our family." "Our family was destroyed the moment you decided Oliver Kane was more important than your husband and son." The security guard stepped forward. "Folks, maybe we should take this conversation somewhere more private." "No," I said, my voice carrying across the parking lot. "I'm tired of private conversations. I'm tired of secrets and lies and threats." I looked directly at Clara, speaking loudly enough for everyone to hear. "You want to know what's destroying our family? It's not me refusing to be blackmailed. It's you billing personal trips as business expenses. It's you threatening to alienate me from my son unless I give you 70% of our assets. It's you planning your new life with your boyfriend while you're still married to me." Clara looked around at the growing crowd of parents and teachers, finally understanding that this public humiliation was being recorded and would be shared. Her carefully constructed image as the successful, devoted mother was crumbling in real time. "I hate you," she whispered. "I know," I said sadly. "But I still won't let you use our son as a weapon." Mrs. Williams appeared at the school entrance with Sam, who looked confused and scared. He ran to me, and I picked him up, holding him tight. "What's happening, Dad?" he asked quietly. "Just some grown-up problems, buddy. Nothing you need to worry about. Clara reached toward Sam, but he shrank back against my shoulder. The rejection was visible and heartbreaking, even for me. Sam, honey, Mommy just wanted to... Mrs. Pierce, the security guard interrupted gently. I think it's best if you leave now. Mr. Pierce has legal custody, and you're creating a disturbance. Clara looked at me one last time, her eyes filled with a mixture of hatred and something that might have been regret. Then she turned and walked back to her car, her shoulders shaking. As she drove away, I realized that several parents were still recording. By tonight, this scene would be all over social media, shared in parent groups and neighborhood forums. Clara's public breakdown at our son's school would become part of the permanent record. Dad? Sam's voice was small against my ear. Yeah, buddy? Are you and Mom getting divorced? I carried him toward my car, thinking about how to answer that question honestly without destroying what was left of his sense of security. Maybe, Sam, but no matter what happens between Mom and me, you're going to be okay, I promise. He nodded against my shoulder, trusting me completely. It was a trust I was determined never to betray, unlike someone else in his life. 3 weeks later, David Chen called with news that made me smile for the first time in months. The judge granted your emergency motion, he said. Full temporary custody, asset protection, and a restraining order. Clara's lawyer tried to argue that you were engaging in harassment, but those text messages she sent pretty much destroyed that argument. What about her job? Patricia Hendricks fired her yesterday. Apparently the expense report fraud was just the tip of the iceberg. They found evidence of kickback schemes with contractors, inflated property assessments, the works. Clara won't be getting her real estate license back anytime soon. I should have felt vindicated. Instead, I just felt tired. There's one more thing, David continued. Clara's requested a face-to-face meeting. Says she has something to tell you that might change your perspective. Where? Neutral ground. She suggested the rooftop restaurant at the Meridian Hotel. The irony wasn't lost on me. The same place where she'd taken that smug selfie with Oliver back when she thought she held all the cards. Set it up. That evening, I arrived at the Meridian to find Clara already waiting at a corner table. She looked different, older, worn down, like someone who'd been carrying a heavy weight for too long. Oliver was nowhere to be seen. Thank you for coming, she said as I sat down. David said you had something important to tell me. Clara stared out at the city lights for a moment before speaking. Oliver's gone. Left town yesterday. Apparently his construction company was under investigation for money laundering, and my association with him made things complicated. So you were just another mark. It looks that way. She turned back to me, and I was surprised to see tears in her eyes. I thought I was using him, Rowan. I thought I was finally taking control of my life, making the smart play for once. By destroying our marriage? By securing my future. Do you know what it's like to be financially dependent on someone else? To know that if something happened to you, I'd have nothing? You could have talked to me about that, Clara. We could have worked something out. Could we? Really? You made all the financial decisions, controlled all the accounts. I felt like a child asking for an allowance. For a moment, I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. So you decided to commit fraud instead of having an adult conversation with your husband. Clara's momentary vulnerability hardened back into defiance. I did what I thought I had to do. And threatened to take my son away from me? I was scared, Rowan. I thought if I could get enough money in the divorce, I could start over somewhere new. Maybe find someone who actually saw me as an equal partner. Someone like Oliver? She laughed bitterly. Oliver saw me as a useful idiot with access to legitimate business accounts. Turns out he was laundering money through my fake property deals. I was helping him commit felonies without even knowing it. The waiter appeared, but neither of us was interested in ordering. This wasn't a social dinner. It was a post-mortem. What do you want from me, Clara? I want to know if there's any way back from this. Any chance we could work something out, for Sam's sake, if nothing else. I looked at her across the table, this woman I'd loved for 15 years, and tried to find some remnant of that feeling. All I found was exhaustion and a deep, bone-deep disappointment. You threatened to take my son away from me unless I gave you 70% of our assets, I said quietly. You committed fraud using my name and credit. You planned your new life with another man while lying to my face every single day. I know, but you want to know if there's a way back? I stood up, pulling out my phone. Let me show you something. I opened the video I'd recorded at Sam's school and hit play. Clara watched herself having a public breakdown in front of dozens of parents and teachers, threatening to take our son, screaming at security guards. This video has been viewed over 50,000 times, I said. It's been shared in every parent group, every neighborhood forum, every social media platform in our area. Your name is permanently associated with this moment." Clara stared at the screen, watching her own destruction on repeat. "You wanted 70%, I continued. "You got 100% of the consequences." I walked away from the table, leaving Clara alone with the city lights and the wreckage of her choices. Behind me, I could hear her crying, but I didn't look back. In the elevator, my phone buzzed with a text from Brett. "How did it go?" I typed back. "It's over. Finally over." The elevator doors opened on the ground floor, and I walked out into the night air, breathing freely for the first time in months. Tomorrow, I'd start building a new life with my son. Tonight, I was just grateful to be done with the old one. 6 months later, Sam and I were settled into our new routine. He was thriving in therapy, his grades were back up, and he'd stopped asking when Mommy was coming home. Clara had moved across the country, working as a receptionist at a small insurance office. She called Sam every Sunday, awkward conversations that gradually became more natural as she learned to be a long-distance parent instead of a manipulative spouse. I never saw Oliver again, but Brett kept me updated on the gossip. Apparently, he'd been arrested in Nevada on money laundering charges. The investigation had traced back to several of Clara's fake property deals, but she'd cooperated fully with authorities and avoided criminal charges herself. One evening, as Sam and I were making dinner together, he looked up from the vegetables he was chopping and asked, "Dad, are you happy now?" I considered the question seriously. Was I happy? I was certainly more at peace than I'd been in years. The constant tension of living with someone who was actively deceiving me was gone. The fear of losing my son had been replaced with the security of knowing he was safe and loved. "Yeah, buddy," I said finally. "I think I am. Are you?" He nodded, then went back to his vegetables. "Good. I like it when you smile more." That night, after Sam was asleep, I sat in my home office looking through the evidence files I'd compiled during the divorce. Screenshots, recordings, financial documents. The complete record of how a marriage could be systematically destroyed by greed and selfishness. I thought about deleting it all, but decided to keep it instead. Not as a reminder of betrayal, but as evidence of survival. Proof that sometimes, when someone tries to destroy your life, the best revenge is simply refusing to let them succeed. Outside my window, the city lights sparkled like possibilities. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new opportunities, new chances to build something better than what had come before. I closed the laptop and went to check on Sam one more time before bed. He was sleeping peacefully, surrounded by books and drawings and all the normal debris of a 10-year-old's life. This was what I'd fought for, not money or property or revenge, but the simple right to protect my child and preserve what remained of our family. Clara had wanted to take everything from me. Instead, she'd given me the chance to discover what really mattered. In the end, that might have been the greatest gift of all.